What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the online JAMILY? Jamiroquai 2000 here with yet another episode of the QUAICAST JAMILY podcast. All the latest Jamiroquai news, and as I did previously in the last episode of the QUAICAST, I'm starting to do a new series, basically doing audio read-throughs of so far 6 published Jamiditorial releases I've been doing in my 13th total Jamiroquai project over the last near 2 years of me doing my version of op-eds, but I call them Jamiditorials, of various aspects, stories, and certain things concerning the last 30 years of Jamiroquai's musical history. Here in this episode of the QUAICAST, I'm going to be doing a read-through of my second Jamitorial release, simply titled A Marvelous Moon-Dusted Onion, Why the Return of the Space Cowboy is Jamiroquai's greatest and most important album work. A lot of old members of the JAMILYs, including yours truly, have been a big fan of the Return of the Space Cowboy, simply because of how socially aware the album was. And in this Jamitorial release, I basically make my issue and make my points on why I believe Return of the Space Cowboy is Jamiroquai's most important album. So let's get on with this read-through of my second Jamitorial release as part of my 13th project, simply called Jamiditorials. We're on the cusp of celebrating the auspicious occasion of the 30th anniversary of the release of the Jamiroquai's magnum opus album from 1994, the aforementioned The Return of the Space Cowboy. On the surface, this may be peak creativity album work for the band before they fell into the rare prestige niche of world music mainstream consciousness with the pay dirt success of 1996 album Traveling Without Moving. But this album in particular demands a second and more surgically fond look back because it was Jamiroquai's most important and greatest album effort of their early primordial existence, and with this Jamiditorial, I will make the supportive and contextual case why both of these daring statements are pure truth and not merely over-loving fan-based tributes. So let us go into the unraveling of this truly great, marvelous, moon-dusted onion of an album. But first, we must know how Jamiroquai got to this point in the early history. After the massive success of their 1993 UK platinum-selling debut album, A Mercy on Planet Earth, they took the daring approach of discussing how their species, the human race, would be exploiting their only bastion of concept of home, the very planet Earth, in the most direct activism way that have ever been seen come into the pop mainstream of music in their region of the world. To say what Jamiroquai did creatively out of the gate of a newly acquired 8-album recording deal with Sony Music in 1993 with their debut album Mercy on Planet Earth would be putting it mildly. To be fair, a majority of pop music acts in this time were doing activist protest music, but in more of a truncated manner towards the social human issues, not coming out and singing about the end of the world at the clutches of the man's planetary activities as Jamiroquai's rabble of young doe-eyed starlings were doing at the time. So after the immediate debut album success in 1993, Jamiroquai didn't do a creative course change to logically abide with the pop music standards and practices, sensibilities that could continue a more friendly approach towards new music fans. They continued undeterred going into their Return of the Space Cowboy album recording sessions from late 1993 through early 1994 with insightful vigor and vim, looking to explore more of the issues in the human condition, but this time not focusing creatively on man v planet Earth, but logically with man v man, and through ambitious self-exploration, won oneself for this new album effort. And from this point on in this Jamitorial, I shall meticulously break down all of the tracks that comprise Jamiroquai's 1994 album, The Return of the Space Cowboy, highlighting their meanings and real-world explanations so you understand the gravity of their individual importance on this groundbreaking second album from the band Jamiroquai. Track, Just Another Story. We open the album with J.K. bearing his soul his early privileged life and their attached high times. A rather unorthodox way to open up with an album, J.K. shares major high points of his young life in the most autobiographical song ever to grace the band's musicology. Brief moments include not knowing his father, his dearly departed twin brother who died in childbirth, and the uncertainties of what his complexuous life would be presenting later on, but always maintaining an optimism of oneself when those times overwhelm you. Another example of J.K.'s courageous daring into not giving a damn about what others think about him and his life. Next track, Stillness in Time. In this popular track from the album, JK and the band contemplate the middle ground in the midst of an escape from one's problem in life, love, and the universe. Its music video is also a beloved experience of seeing all the band members of Jamiroquai frolicking in the Great Salt Flats in America on location, and is idyllically playful as the song itself. The band's willingness of showing how kindred they were as spirits is on full display in this marvelous song. Next song, Half the Man. The first ballad of the album, JK really pines for finding that other half of oneself or spirit or life, realizing that it was around him the whole time. Whether discovered through introspection or realization of familiarity, it's the pursuit of that common truth that makes its discovery all worth the efforts, whether afforded or earned after questioning. Next track, Light Years. Another inspiring song very much in the vein of the previous album track, Stillness in Time, but more from the point of view of one helping another attain their dream or aspiration through trial and error. Support structures are the lyrical conduit at play in this song, and the importance of helping one another is the important takeaway in this very lovely song. Next track, Manifest Destiny. The first song on the album to tackle a very loaded humanity depravity of our past history in the subjugation of the people through slavery. The song's sharp lyrics question the illogical promises of freedoms, beautiful lands, and opportunity articulated to the slaves. Referencing the North American slave trade from human history, JK does show immense remorse and hatred for what transpired in the dark practice of pre- and post-civilizational human society. This song is still as blistering and honest as it was nearly 30 years ago. The next track, The Kids. This song, man, ever the marvel to those who listen to it more than just on the surface level, takes a hard look at how many underprivileged people in the uncertain world will have to lie, cheat, and steal to make a life for themselves in these very hard times. But to further the honesty more effectively, it is through a lyrical lens of young people of the world, even through so much adversity, scrape by and try to maximize their life's aspirations. And worth noting, the volcanically vicious instrumentation of this song really nails the lyrical truth torpedoes home with more precision. The next track, Mr. Moon. Another lovely ballad on the album is all about meeting the circumstances of coincidental love. The instrumentation, again, makes for this a killer ballad, still hovering around the lyrical concept of metaphysical Mr. Moon that a couple must abide with to make a connection with lovers' intentions. The next track, Scam. Another scathingly honest song, much in the vein of The Kids, but in a more protestful manner. JK masterfully navigates these pinpricks of great lyrics about the ironies of restricted life that many have to live through to abide with society's status quo, only to find that it's a rigged system to benefit the few and not the many. So the only resort is to scam. The very Gil Scott-Heron instrumentation and JK singing through a static mic really bring the authenticity of this very real-world issue that isn't not just of a pastime in human history, but a very much an ever-clear and present danger to the populations of the current world. Next track, Journey to Arnhem. One of the first truly perfect instrumental tracks by the early iteration of the band, this track is really a showcase of the didgeridoo masterhood prowess of Jamiroquai's own Wallace Buchanan. This is a pure chill-out and such a relaxing rest period on this rather turbulently busy album. Next track, Morning Glory. This smooth, mantra-like track that sees JK waxing the poetic about one's spirit drifting into a dreamlike state of attaining one true self. The strings, the vibe, and the grooves coalesce together into a pure nirvana of a tranquil mind. Next track, Space Cowboy. In other worldwide releases of this album, this track is actually listed as the opening track of The Return of the Space Cowboy. This track sees JK talking about the Space Cowboy, which according to him is about a quote-unquote good time or pure euphoric moment, usually attained through a communal bit of Chiba vibe or through the consumption of marijuana. Its connected music video is yet another example of foreshadowing, utilizing a slowly oscillating camera moving around a room with tilted, mesmerizing video effects, disappearing and reappearing band members performing, JK showing off his uncanny moves through the confining space, and that foreshadowing being foreshadowing that he would do years later on in the famous 1996 Virtual Insanity music video, a marvel of a single. And that is a rundown of all the tracks from the Return of the Space Cowboy. I think everyone can agree with me on how deep and layered this marvelous album is. I have always gravitated to the Jamiroquai albums that are thick and lush, and in a combination of their instrumentation and lyrical content. The deeper of the meanings you seek, the more rewarding you are offered upon seeking them. The latter Jamiroquai discography might have been fixated mostly on the theme of love, but the first three Jamiroquai albums really showcase a rapid, unbridled creative energy that seemed to have a sky's the limit premise. But returning to listening to these albums can yield much more than initially caught on the first listen through around. And The Return of the Space Cowboy is the richest, most succulent, marvelous moon-dusted of the three-album run for Jamiroquai. So many layers, so much depth, and so much to discover. So in summation, that is why the album, in my opinion, is the band's greatest and most important album of their entire album discography. I hope everyone in the online JAMILY revisits this album and makes this assessment for themselves. Thank you for reading, and happy 30th anniversary Return of the Space Cowboy. The aforementioned 30th anniversary moon-dusted colored reissue of Jamiroquai's Return of the Space Cowboy releases is going to be released through Sony Music and Legacy Recordings in the UK, and then, of course, Europe and surrounding territories on October 18th of 2024 in the US, and, of course, October 25th in surrounding territories. I highly recommend that everybody in the JAMILY goes and re-listens to this amazing album from Jamiroquai from 1994. But if you'd like to read this Jamiditorial, simply titled The Marvelous Moon-Dusted Onion, Why the Return of the Space Cowboy is Jamiroquai's greatest and most important album work, I'll be sure to put a link to this Jamiditorial for my Instagram at JamiroFan2000, and of course a link to it as well on social media down in the description area of this episode of the QUAICAST JAMILY podcast down below upon its upload on Spotify. And as always, this is JamiroFan2000. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you again really soon with more Jamiroquai-related content here on the QUAICAST JAMILY podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone, and I'll see you around.